Hi, everybody. My name's Amer. Thanks for watching. I'm here as part of my quest to review all of the episodes of the TV series Mission Impossible, both the original series as well as I'd like to do the revival series. We'll see how much interest is generated. I'd like to get likes and subscriptions, so I hope you enjoy what I'm going to be putting out. Before I get started, I want to say that obviously Mission Impossible, the copyright is held by Paramount, Viacom, CBS. I'm not trying to jump on anybody's copyright or anything like that. Obviously, they own all the rights to the show. We're just fans. So let's start by talking about the very, very first episode that aired back in 1966. It was aptly named Pilot because it was a pilot episode that the creators, mostly Bruce Geller, was hoping would be picked up. So the first thing, when you turn this episode on and you start watching it, you'll see the opening sequence, of course, with the music that we all know and love. And then the first thing you're likely to say is, you'll see, who's that guy? Or you might say, where's Jim Phelps? Not a lot of people recall that Stephen Hill played the team leader originally. His name is Dan Briggs, as you're about to see. You may remember Mr. Hill. He also played the DA on the original Law and Order back in the early 90s. We'll talk more about how that whole thing progressed as we discuss some of the episodes that come through this season. Anyway, we get started with Dan using some spy speak with a guy who gets a vinyl record that contains his instructions. There's a nuclear warhead that's been stolen by a General Dominguez, who is a dictator of a country called Santa Costa. General Dominguez happens to look just like Martin Landau. That's convenient. The mission: get the warheads out of the country, and especially make sure they're not used against the United States. We start with the first ever apartment scene where Dan chooses his team. So he's got a bunch of dossiers. There's some black and white pictures and there's some color pictures. Pro tip: if you have an ordinary black and white picture, you're probably not going to get picked. Actually, you're definitely not going to get picked. If you've got a color picture, or at least a good black and white one with some detailed information, that's what we want to look for. So we start by getting Roland Hand, a master of disguise, Barney Collier, the electronics expert, Cinnamon Carter, the femme fatale, Willie Armitage, the muscle. That's your regular crew. In this episode, we're also going to get Terry Targo. He's the guest agent this week as a safe cracker. As a side note, I mentioned Bruce Geller, the original creator. You can see his picture actually is the first one that's rejected by Dan, and also his partner Herb Solo. He's in another one of the pictures as a more heavy-set guy. Anyway, moving on. So Dan goes over the plan with the team. They discuss some of the finer aspects of the plan, hinting and foreshadowing some of the things that they'll have to do in order to get the job done. This is actually a fun part of the episode because they give you little glimpses of what's going to happen. Barney, are you ready with this? Roland, you know about this, right? And that sort of thing. And it just drops little hints that later on, when you realize, oh, that's what they were talking about, I've always found that to be really cool. The team isn't sure that they're going to be able to pull it off, but Dan says they wouldn't be there if they couldn't. He assures them that everything will be fine as long as they're prepared. So off the team goes to Santa Costa, to the hotel where the general has his headquarters. Dan and Willie enter the country as clock and watch sellers, and they have some heavy suitcases that go in the time-locked hotel safe. Inside the safe, we get a glimpse of the ominous container with the warheads, and its combination seems to be a set of three color codes. Once the safe is closed, Terry emerges from one of the suitcases and gets to work. Cinnamon and a wheelchair-bound Roland come in as a tourist couple, with Roland releasing some mice from a hidden compartment in his wheelchair, necessitating the hotel to call Exterminator Barney, who gets his run of the place to make sure that the mice don't bother the patrons. Roland practices the general's mannerisms and sets himself with a mask of Dominguez. Terry figures out how to get out of the safe from the inside for when the time comes, and Barney starts setting up equipment around the hotel in an effort to prevent the general's planned speech from happening. Obviously, Roland would have a lot of problems discovering or delivering, I should say, that speech. If you haven't figured it out by now, Roland's going to impersonate the general. So, when Roland is suitably prepared, He meets the team, they head over to the general's suite. The guards there are surprised to see the general outside of the room when he was inside before. They're quickly overpowered by the IMF. Terry picks a lock and the general is shocked to see his doppelganger outside. He tries to get away but is held at gunpoint by Dan, and Rollin is able to shoo away the other guards who appear. In the fracas, Terry's fingers get jammed in the door and are broken. Cinnamon arrives, and Dan announces a change of plans due to Terry's injury. He'll have to go into the vault himself, and Rollin will have to impersonate Dan. The general's chief of security, Alicio, stops by with some questions, but the team manages to get him out of the room, thanks to Cinnamon wrapping herself in a towel and little else. Cinnamon then goes to the vault to get a signature card for the team to use. Terry helps Dan make adjustments for the new plan, which begins when Willie takes the suitcases back to the vault with Dan and the general in them. The time for the general's speech arrives. Barney's able to jam its transmission signals. Dan makes it clear to the general that he'll pick a random combination for the lock on the warheads if he's not told the correct combination, rather than leave the safe without them, and decides to pick Santa Costa's flag colors, but it turns out to be the American flag colors. Nice touch there.
Oh! Not green. Red, white, and blue. General, you not only have sense, you have a sense of it.
Rollin, as the general, heads back to his room to put on the Dan mask, but Alicio follows him in and finds the mask first. Fortunately, Rollin is able to subdue him, and the mission finishes successfully, with Terry in the wheelchair, Rollin wearing the Dan mask, and Dan blowing up the time lock, with Barney setting up a fireworks display as a distraction and cover for the noise, slapjacking the poor vault guard on the way out. The IMF hightails it with soldiers in pursuit to a waiting airplane, and the last shot is on the Dan Briggs mask lying on the tarmac. Mission accomplished. So it's important to remember that, of course, this is a pilot episode. It was all new then. We're familiar with a lot of the usual stuff. If you're a fan and you've watched the show and you know a lot of the things that the IMF does over the years, but of course it was totally new then. So we look back at this and I tend to find, and I think a lot of other people do too, they tend to find a lot of these early episodes weird and slow. The show was still finding itself. I don't really mind that as long as it's not insipid or boring, and this one doesn't fall into either of those categories. There's nothing too flashy. There's a little bit of expository dialogue, which sometimes is a little bit unnecessary. Ordinarily, I don't like it, but it's not too bad in this episode, and it's somewhat necessary to help us follow the plot, because you got to remember, this was something completely new. Nobody had ever seen anything like this before. So I'll point out some of the things that I liked and some of the things that I didn't like. One of the really good things was Terry as the guest agent, played by Wally Cox. He's not just a one-trick pony. I really like the way that he contributes to the plan by giving in his own input about, hey, we got to watch out for this. When Dan has to basically adjust the plan, Terry points out that, hey, we got to think about this. Before, it was just little old me, and there was enough oxygen for me to survive in that room for 12 hours, waiting for the time lock on the safe to reopen. But 2 people for 12 hours? I might have to worry a little bit, right? That was a really, really neat little detail. I like little things like that as they pop up. Also, there's a neat scene towards the very beginning. While they're waiting for Dan and his briefing, the team is playing penny poker and cheating a little bit. That's kind of a nice touch. I really do like that scene. You don't get a lot of that in later episodes. And again, I already mentioned about how the briefing gives us some interesting details to kind of pique people's interest without giving too much away. Later on in the series, that can get positively draining with the amount of stuff that they're basically giving away in the first 5 minutes of the episode. Which I never really liked. So all in all, I would give this episode a B+. It's a great first outing for the team. The mission gives everyone something to do, as all the best episodes do. There's some improv along the way when things don't go perfectly to plan, also always good. I never like it. And it tends never to be a good episode when things are too easy for the team, right? That gets really boring really fast. It's a quality beginning to let the audience know what to expect from the show going forward. There's nothing complicated. The plot is easy to follow. So that's my review of Pilot. I'll go on to the next episode shortly, once I can finish up this video and get started with the next one. And the next episode is called Memory. That's also kind of a fun one. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my review. Like the video, please. Subscribe to the channel so you'll get informed of new videos as they come out. Mission accomplished. I'll see you next time.